and then we're going to kick in there. So, yep, just chuck in the chat. What are you most excited about? What's your big takeaways been for the week? And then we're going to kick in with Ainsley. Sick. Give me a second. All right, team. Cool. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, guys. So we are back again. Day 3 of MVP week. Yeah, as I said just before we jumped on live, today I'm really, really pumped because we have Ainsley Hedges, who has created a pretty fucking incredible business over the last sort of, I guess, 6 to 9 months that we've been working together. But there's been a lot that sort of happened before that and has allowed her to get to this position. And I really want to dive into that throughout this call. But yeah, let's fucking go. So Ainsley, cool. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, mate. Maybe tell us your Instagram handle so that people can give you a little follow in that as well.
Yeah, beautiful. So my Instagram handle is Ainsley Hedges, just my full name. And I suppose a little bit about me. So I've been in the industry for about 3-4 years now, fully face-to-face. And I think with Mamba now for about 6 months, 6-7 months, which is really, really cool. I came in the fitness industry from competitive bodybuilding. So from about 18 years old. Anyone that has done bodybuilding, they would know that it is extreme. There's lots of highs, there's lots of lows, and everyone's experience is different. Through probably my experience, second round, it was pretty tough. I had lots of struggles mentally, physically, and then come out the other side in a lot of shit. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I don't know what I'm going to do with my career. Fitness, it's just not for me. And then I pretty much had to rebuild myself and what the meaning of fitness was. So that probably coincided with my coaching business, and who I work with has changed from that too. So it's very much a lot of women who want to build their confidence, build their relationship with food, and just get strong and enjoy training.
I love it, mate. It's quite a common story, like with the bodybuilding sort of stuff, where people come through and like you get that discipline from it. You obviously get the lessons, but often we realize it's not for everyone. And so just sort of maybe walk us back through your journey of like, when did you get in the industry? And so maybe if we can talk about the turning point of what happens when you're like, okay, I need to change, and then making that commitment to change.
Yeah, so I was probably 18 and I think I just found gym for a couple of years, and then I invested in a coach face-to-face, and then from there I jumped into bodybuilding, not really knowing what it was. And then I think through that experience, it was really good. Like obviously first prep 18, I was like, fuck, this is an exciting world. I want to be a part of it, not sort of knowing what I'm going to do career-wise. And then, yeah, that sort of changed from there. And then I suppose after a couple of years from prep, it was probably just the point of, okay, I knew that. I thought, when you're deep in prep, it's like, yeah, this is my life. I'm going to do this for 10 years. And then as soon as that all came crumbling down, and I was like, I don't like fitness anymore. I don't like, training, eating. It's just not for me. But I was like, okay, like I'm not happy, but how can I make myself happy? And I think it was that turning point of when you're at your very, very lows, like mentally, physically, you're just not happy. I was like, okay, and something needs to change. I need to find the love again.
Amazing. With that, obviously like a very like deeply personal experience, how has that, and this is probably something for later in the conversation, but we'll tackle it now, is like, how do you feel like that is shaped now the way you coach and your style of coaching, and maybe how that shows up in your business?
Everything, absolutely everything. I think that from the get-go, a lot of my followers that followed me from not even being in fitness, they followed the journey, the highs, the lows. And I think being open about all the struggles. That's probably the biggest thing. So I've never really hidden, you know, yeah, you do hide away for a few months, but I've said, yeah, this happened. I went through this, binge eating, you know, building up a relationship with food, weight gain, weight loss, all the things. And it just makes me kind of relatable for a lot of people, because already it opens up that soft spot of like, oh shit, she's human. Fuck, she's been through this. I've been through this. So everything.
So in terms of that, mate, like, was it hard to do? Was it hard to change?
So hard. Very, very hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And was that purely just like you had to go through an identity crisis, you had to hit rock bottom, or like was it something you were scared to put out there?
It was probably with the fitness world. Yes, you're very judged by your criteria of what you look like, and I think it will always be that. And so it should be, you know, for people to understand what you do. But I think I was like, wow, I'm, you know, when you go through an identity crisis of this is what I thought I was and now what am I doing? Who's going to follow me? No one's going to be coached by me because I'm not a competitive bodybuilder anymore. Like I'm just your everyday Joe. Like what do I have to offer? So it was that shift that I needed to be like, okay, who am I now? Who am I outside of bodybuilding?
Has anyone experienced that similar sort of feeling where it's gone through this identity crisis of like, what do I do? Yeah, 100%. And one thing I think that has 100% stands out about you, Ainsley, is that ability to be extremely relatable. In terms of like, I know you basically just show up as who you are. Maybe you want to share a little bit about like what you put out in terms of your content that just seems to relate to people a lot.
I think the big turning point, especially with showing up online, like it's not always easy, and you do have your weeks and days where you feel quite shit and the last thing you want to do is go up on Instagram and be all happy and vibey. But probably that turning point of just be you and be authentic and just go with it. So probably what I share is probably my past experience a lot because I know it and I've been through it. So relationship with food, really talking about that, how it affected me. And now obviously talking about clients that I'm helping through the same transition that I've been through. A lot of body confidence seems to be a big thing, you know, feeling happy, feeling strong and enjoying the journey rather than being so fixated on the process. So I think all of those type of content ideas really show through what I share.
Yeah, 100%. It's like in terms of like the archetype stuff we were sort of talking about yesterday, it actually seems like you quite lean towards like the clients that will relate to are sort of that innocent type, you know, where it's like they want to feel safe, that they are able to explore, you know, like that other side of things and let go of all of that external pressure. Do you feel like since you've become more authentically yourself and allowed yourself to be out there, you're attracting these sort of people?
Absolutely. I think before Mamba, I had no idea like what your avatar was or who I was working with. And probably the biggest reason why I was like unhappy just doing fully face-to-face because I just wasn't relating with the people I was working with. And I think through that change, I was like, okay, shit, this is who I want to work with. And this is who I am too. Like, I think I am the avatar that I want to work with, but also like there's obviously externals outside of that too. But yeah. Massively.
Yeah, it's huge. So let's go back. You know, before I guess you're an in-person coach, you're sort of saying, you know, you weren't quite happy doing that. Do you want to maybe just talk about where you were before you started this online process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was probably just doing fully face-to-face, you know, 30, 40 sessions a week. And it's very good. Like I enjoy face-to-face, but if anyone that knows, like if you've done more than 30 sessions a week, it's very draining, mentally, physically exhausting. And I just wasn't happy. And it wasn't just like a week fix. It was a month to month. I was like, what is happening? I don't want to show up to any of my sessions. I'm not really enjoying who I'm working with. I'm just like really struggling and I don't really want to stay there. But I think it definitely came back to who I was working with and who I was attracting. I didn't really feel respected in the space. I felt, you know, it was just all like a psychology session. No one really wanted to learn. And obviously that's not fulfilling on my half. So obviously that was the switch that needed to be made.
Yeah, and what do you feel like was the tipping point?
Oh, I think it was literally like 2 weeks of like every morning getting up at 5 and like being in the face-to-face session in another world. And then I think I came home and I was like, this is not it anymore. I was like, what the fuck do I need to do? And then obviously one thing leads to another, and here you go.
Yeah, and so obviously you're working in a gym. You've hit this point where it's like, look, this just ain't it anymore. And I guess at the time, like, were you just having to sort of get what whoever clients came to you, or what were you doing in terms of your marketing?
Yeah, it was obviously happening pretty good, like lots of referrals through the gym,
Yeah,
that type of thing. I wasn't overly, like, I knew nothing about sales and marketing before Mamba, like nothing. So, it was all just through that.
yeah,
But yeah, I never really attracted the clients, I suppose, that I wanted to work with. It was like, oh, whoever wanted PT, I would try and sign them up, and that was it.
yeah. So cool. And then so you reach out, or I think it was Shana Lee, didn't she? She's
Yeah,
like, you got to get on this.
it was so random. It was like, I don't know how long she'd been with you, maybe like a month or two. And then
Yeah.
we finally met one time through a photo shoot. She
Mhm.
was just some chicken, and then we followed each other ever since. And then we just sort of started chatting, like, oh, how's things, how's business? And she's like, Ainsley, you've got to meet this guy, Dylan. He's fucking wizard. He's changing my life. And I was like, this sounds cool. And I didn't at that point know, like I had no idea what I really wanted with online or with future with fitness. I just knew that
Yep.
something needed to change. And then, yeah, that was probably how Mamba started.
Yeah, I guess at that point, like, what did you sort of think that online was, or what was sort of your perception of that?
I knew that that was opportunity. And
Hmm.
I think seeing a lot of other people excel who I looked up to, seeing the
Yep,
lifestyle, seeing the creativity, there was
yep,
something that drew me to it.
yeah, absolutely. And so then obviously you said, all right, cool. There was a point where and we started working together, and you're like, all right, it's time. I'm gonna leave my in person. I know we were talking to Shana Lee. She was similar boat yesterday, where she's like, look, we just got to make this change. Uh, do you potentially want to talk to us about how you made that decision, what you did to transition, and then what that's looking like now?
Yeah, it wasn't a very light decision. I
So,
with things like even before coming to Mumbo, like, you always think, oh, I should do a business course, I should do this, but you just never end
yeah,
up doing it. And it was a similar thing to that. I was like, what do I actually have to lose? So lots of game planning. I did figure out, what I needed to earn from online. And I
yeah,
knew that probably, I think it was 50% of the clients that I had face to face did come with me to
yeah,
online, and then 50% didn't. And that was a pretty good ratio. I was happy with that.
yeah.
And then I sort of went literally as soon as clients would drop off face to face, I would just kind of leave it as is from 30 to 20 to 10. And then all of a sudden it was, give myself a couple of weeks to earn this amount of money and jump straight in.
Yeah, and you were just like, all right, go now, which was
Yeah.
pretty sick.
It was
Yeah.
like, okay, I've got to do it now. I know it's going to be hard, but now's the opportunity. Like, it's either now or never. Like,
And so, like with the 40 sessions, how much were you charging per session, roughly in person?
about 70, 80 bucks.
Yep. So that's like close to 3 grand a week. That's not easy to walk away from.
No,
Nah,
no.
it's
But I
it's
mean,
one of
like,
those things.
it's not, but I mean, when you're in that sort of position where you don't want to be there every day, and like I still love to face to face, but again, like it all comes down to perspective and how you're feeling at the time. But
Yeah.
it wasn't worth feeling like that. It wasn't worth feeling so unhappy in the
Yeah.
place.
Absolutely, mate. No, it's one of those things too, and I think like that's why I resonate so well with you is like you will do things because you're passionate and you basically just want to build that life rather than, hey, look, cool, it's all about money, this sort of thing, and I think it's very very cool. So, um, now that you've transitioned, obviously, you've built a fucking sick online business. Like, maybe do you want to tell us a little bit about? I think it's about 6 or so months, maybe like where that journey's led you and where it's taken to you, and then what life looks like now.
Yeah, crazy. So probably prior to Mumbai, I had like anywhere between 5 to 10 online clients. And that was the same for months and months and months. And then from there, I just learned the systems, the DMs, like everything was new to me. And well, obviously fast track now from less than 10. And now I have 70 online clients from this week. So that's been crazy in freaking, 6 months.
Yeah.
That's a massive turnover. And I never thought that would be ever possible, right? But yeah, like I think there has been a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and I think through just accepting them now and just knowing that that is business and that is the ride that I'm in and just going with it now. I think just learning, probably a lot of turning points happen within the last 3-4 months. That's probably when the most amount of growth and obviously the most amount of hardship has happened. I think through traveling, I did a lot of traveling. I went to Bali, I went obviously Sunshine Coast, and I went to Japan with my partner, all within like 1 to 2 months. And I was like, holy shit, like I'm allowed to obviously like travel, go overseas, and everything is in place. And I actually had growth when I went to Japan through my business. And it was just like, it's pretty unreal from here to here what you can do.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I don't say this to you guys, but I almost get a bit depressed when I talk to you guys because you like travel all the time, like you're doing such cool shit all the time. Or like, I'm going back to fitness. This is amazing. But it was pretty cool, mate. I remember you went to Japan and I was like, that's fucking sick. And I know it was a big thing for you. And then you're like, I think about 2 weeks later or maybe a month later, you're like, oh, I'm actually in Bali this week. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, that was wild. Maybe tell us a little bit about like what you did in Japan, just from a pure experience point of view.
Yeah, Japan was awesome. So we just stayed in Tokyo and just did so much exploring there, like obviously like pig cafes. I think Disneyland was probably like the highlight there. It was so beautiful. And obviously the busiest place in the world would have been Japan. Like I've never seen anything busier. Obviously the food is amazing from that perspective. And I think just the cultural experience, seeing Mount Fuji, just all in all, like in Tokyo City, you never see something like Tokyo City at nighttime. Awesome.
Yeah, incredible. And like and your business actually grew while you were there?
Yeah.
So were you working a lot there or what were you sort of doing?
No, so prior to Japan, I was like, okay, I'm setting everyone's plans up all in advance. So I did have time. I don't think I worked much at all. I just did 2 generic check-in, like mornings and the afternoons where I responded to all my clients. And then I just had Monday and Friday, I just did voice check-ins. So usually I would do computer loom, but everyone was really understanding over that. But I probably worked like, I don't know, anywhere between and maybe an hour to 2 hours a day, if that. And I think like before I was leaving on the plane, I got like 4 inquiries from my job form. And then it was like day 3, I got another 2 inquiries. And I was like, what is happening? I'm going away. And now all these people are just like inquiring into my Instagram DMs. This doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's fucking wild. Like just maybe if you can sort of paint leading up to this holiday, like say for example, like if you were coaching yourself on like, hey, Ainsley, look, this is what you need to do 2 weeks before to make sure you can go away and enjoy your holiday. Maybe if you can walk us through that process, and I guess coach us on how we can do that and have a sick holiday and still grow our business.
Yeah, so probably the biggest thing is honestly just thinking, okay, what are the things that take me the most time and what can I do in advance? So all of that would have been coming from a work perspective. It's your meal plans. Obviously, it's responding to clients, it's your check-ins, and it's training programs. So they take obviously quite a long period of time. So setting myself up and making sure that everyone's training phase was okay. And also like a week to 2 in advance for when I was going to come back. So I wasn't just coming back to just a pile of shit to deal with. So making sure that was all done. And also just setting up my clients' expectations, letting them know, hey, these are the times that I will be responding, And honestly, like nothing really changed. Everyone was understandable. Everyone was responsive. It was just normal. And they were actually really appreciative that I was on so frequently throughout the holiday. And then from a content perspective, setting myself up 2 weeks in advance. So the week whilst I was away and also the week coming back, all the posts, and similar thing when it comes to stories. I wasn't as active on stories because actually it was just more what I was doing in Japan, but still active, still people seeing what I'm doing with my life outside of gym. So I think that will still as well.
I think like people actually love that stuff as well, like because they obviously look up to you as a role model, as a leader, and someone like they're like, I just love what Ainsley's about, and so seeing like that, behind the scenes if you travel and stuff too, they're like, that's fucking cool, they would have loved it, which is pretty sick. Did any of your clients get hesitant about like you being away and that sort of thing, or were they all pretty good?
They were actually really good. Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
No, and it's obviously very different from previous before when you're all online, all face to face. Sorry, you don't have that flexibility, and you're not going to if you're already doing 40 sessions, there's no way you can double them to try and obviously keep it for the next week. It's just not possible. So you do have to sacrifice weeks without any income. So obviously that was a really big switch over too, because nothing changed in that department and I didn't have to stress about shit, I'm losing this amount of money, I need to pull it from somewhere else.
That's a very, very good point, isn't it? Like because your income's not determined by time anymore, it's determined by the value you give. Yeah, that's amazing, mate. And then obviously went to Bali a few weeks later. What did you sort of do while you were there, and how did you make sure that trip fit in with everything? And was it just the same process, or what were you doing there?
Yeah, so that was a different holiday actually. So I was meaning to go over there for a reason of a client competing. But she didn't end up competing, but it was just me and a client that went on holiday. So that again, was a complete different perspective. Obviously getting to know her. She was an online client. So we'd met before, but we didn't have much of a rapport, but we trained over there. Like, we ate really relatively healthy, lots of walking. So it was a different type of holiday. And again, I think being in that perspective, it made me very much want to work, like I'd get up at maybe like 3 hours before she did. She'd get up at 9, I'd get up at 6. I'd do 2-3 hours of work and then I'm good for the day. Like I've set myself up. And if I needed to, obviously in the evenings while she was back, I'd do some more. But again, like it gives you that flexibility of as long as I've got these tasks and I'm responsive to clients throughout the day, I can get them done in the morning or the afternoon and it's done.
Yeah, fucking awesome. And maybe just like expanding on that, if you were to just run us through your day-to-day calendar now, what does it look like from time you wake up, all the tasks you got to do, and then, all the little things you do now as an online coach?
So calendars I love and hate them, to be honest. Like they are fantastic, but at the same point, they are very hard to stick to and things can get really overwhelming. So that's a constant refinement, I think, every single week, to be honest. So at the moment, I actually switched to training in the morning. So a big thing that helps me feel really productive and actually get things done is making sure I actually do things for me. And I wasn't doing that for a long time. I wouldn't go for walks. I wouldn't train. I'd just be like, oh, I'm just too busy to do anything that I want to do. But making sure I do that at like in the morning between like 5:30, 7, and then I come home, have my coffee, I'm all set. I've already done some steps and then I'm like ready to go. So I have my 2 check-in days, Monday and Friday, that are my bigger bulk of days, especially when it comes to like looms and filming. And then the rest of the week, is scheduled out based on either nutrition plans for a good solid block, creativity space with going to the gym and filming or being at home filming content, obviously Mamba calls, and also other things such as like sales learning, and the other cut fillers that I do for myself.
It sounds like but like you're getting a lot of things during that day that sort of grow you as well, aren't you? Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think maybe just that first little point you touched on, because I remember there was a point where you felt like it's almost like you felt unmotivated or you're just a little bit lost. And I think we did identify that, like, hey, look, just get up and go train and stuff in the morning. Like, maybe if you want to explain that, because it happens to every single coach that goes from in person, where it's like you got to be up at 4 a.m. to online, and all of a sudden you're running your own day. How did that sort of happen?
I think having to, yeah, that was that period of time where I was like, I don't know, I have a lot of time availability, right? Like people's training programs are done for 8 weeks. It's not like you need to do them every single day. People's meal plans, whatever, it's good. They only have one check-in a week, and it's relatively like it doesn't take you a long time to respond to clients. So as soon as that's done, you might have 6 hours in your day of just freedom. So I think being really set with having small tasks on each day. I also give myself a lot of like space and gaps. So making sure I either do, go down to the coffee shop, go grab a coffee. I actually do singing now. So I'm doing some singing and then I'll come back and do work. And then I'm like, good. So breaking up the day has probably been the biggest thing. And same with content, like being really strict with content days. That makes me enjoy it and that makes me feel creative. So kind of basing it on how I'm feeling.
That's it. And so it's not easy to do. Like where it's like you have to be disciplined and strict of like, okay, I'm gonna go and create content at say 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I know for me, like that can be a really big struggle where I'm better just doing it off the cuff and sort of like bouncing like that. But so how do you one plan your content and then two stay like consistent and disciplined to make sure it actually happens?
I find I had done previous before planning my content maybe like quite a lot in advance, and now I've
Yep.
just dropped it back to actually week to fortnight in advance
Yep.
again because I'm always learning and improving based off what's working, what's not. I'm finding if I plan something that was from 3 weeks ago and I've jumped on a Mamba call or we've gone through a review, I'm like, oh, that's shit, I'm not putting that on my Instagram anymore. So my standards have changed for what I want to post. So doing it 1 to 2 weeks in advance really, really helps. Also with my content, I find having date, like especially if you're at the gym and you're wanting to do gym style content, actually not when you're training. So schedule it a different time or on your rest day. So you can obviously get your favorite gym outfit, feel good, and then you go in, smash the boxes, and then you just feel a lot more satisfied rather than I've got to do content, plus I've got to train legs, and it's just not a good time. So scheduling it outside of those hours works. And same with editing periods. So I always do editing towards the end of the week, and then sort of set myself up on that Friday to Sunday for the new week.
Yeah, amazing, mate. One thing I think you do like world class is your content, and I know you just said in regards to the standards of your content is definitely raised. What would be an example of that, and why do you feel like you've made this change, and how is it impacting, I guess, the way people reach out to you and stuff?
Yes, definitely. So actually understanding like the psychology behind content is actually insane. And the more we learn through obviously you and through everyone else through Mamba, and like every week it's something new about the posting flow. That's really been the biggest thing. And before, like obviously I've done like this launch, it was a really big focus on behind the scenes, really, because I was like, you might have good content, but it doesn't really showcase who I am or what I do. So behind the scenes has probably been the biggest focus. And also being quite authentic in, people buy off you. People buy off getting to know your personality. That's why they come to you. So make sure your personality shows through your content. That's probably been a really big thing because they're like, oh, I just like your vibe, like, your energy. You said this, like it might not even be about fitness, but that's what leads you from someone to someone else.
Absolutely. And when quite often too, and I know this was a frustration you had for a little while there where you're like, look, everybody's saying they love my vibe, they love who I am. How do I get them to buy my shit? So maybe if you can sort of walk us through, that period and what you did to adjust your content to make them go from loving what you do to buying what you do.
I think the biggest thing, obviously through you, is value is probably the biggest thing. But rather than being like, okay, this is a hip thrust, anyone can do that post. Anyone can show these are the 3 tips to improve your hip thrust. So that was probably the biggest switch of behind the scenes. So instead of, okay, this is how you do X, Y, and Z, it's like, hey, my client so-and-so was struggling with her hip thrust, right? She couldn't activate her glutes. this is what we did, and this is an insight of how I coach and how I program my clients. If you're keen to know more, blah, 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 blah. So it's like these small changes, even like with nutrition. So it could just be like a meal plan or something. It's like, okay, this is how I coach my clients to get out of restrictive eating. And this is an example. So it's like, oh, cool. All right, this is what she actually does. And I like how she helps people. So that's probably been the biggest turnover is actually behind the scenes, integrating that within my content that I'm doing now.
That's huge, guys. And I want you guys now, maybe I'm going to just quickly leave it open because I think like that is what Ainsley has just said there. I hope you wrote that down and start to apply this in your business. But I'm also going to leave it open for a couple minutes. If you guys want to ask Ainsley a couple of questions on how she's doing this, because she's probably doing it the best that I see inside of Mamba. She's very, very good at sharing how, hey, this is what I do for my clients. And, this is how it works. This is how it can help you as well. So just raise your hands quickly if you have a quick question for Ainsley around anything she said so far as well. Jesse, my man. Yeah.
What up? I have some questions. So the main thing I've got, because like I'm really on the edge of like going full online, and it's like, you said you got all these extra hours. How do you feel like your productivity has gone from going from in-person to just fully online?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely, well, I mean, when I was fully face-to-face, I didn't have that creativity space. So, you do your face-to-face, and like you said in yours, you just come home and you do Xbox or whatever for like 4 hours, 5 hours. So very easy to do. But now I'm like, okay, now I've trained. Now I'm like, shit, like I have so much of the day and it's creative. So it makes what we do enjoyable, and it makes us actually sort of like prioritize the task better.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, sold. I'm quitting.
So go fully online.
Yeah. It's almost a space thing, isn't it? Where it's like you have space to be creative. And one of the things is like people try to force content, and that's why I sort of say I'm often better where I'm just like, I'll go for a walk, and people will say this, like, you're just outside walking. And it's like, well, it's the only 5 minutes of the day I have. So I go outside and have a walk, and I find that because I'm giving myself like natural space, I feel like I'm less crowded and stuff like that. It allows for creative space. So sometimes having that, and sort of speaking to Jesse here, is like when you have that room, bro, it opens up, space for creativity to come in. And then it's the other little side of that is like Dr. Dre said, he's like, and I always quote the great poets of our time, as Dr. Dre is one of them, but he said, hey, look, when those ideas coming, I do not stop them, because you never know when that train comes along. And quite often, if you're doing other stuff, you don't have time for that train to ever come, because it's like you're basically stopping it at every time.
That's exactly how I feel, man. I feel like I'm getting on a roll, and then it's like I've got to go in person now, and it's like it just throws me off. So yeah, so quitting. Let's go.
Well done, Ainsley. You've coached Jesse to a new life, which is sick.
I found too, like Jesse, even when it was 30, when it was 12, like even though you still had like less and less time, your head's still focused. Your head's still, I've got to be in PT. I've got to be doing this at this time. So you're not fully embedded into a task because you're still worried about something that's happening soon.
For sure. Yep. Thank you, mate. I appreciate it.
Anybody else? Tia, I see you sort of listening pretty intently. Did you have a question there?
I have so many. I actually don't even know where to start. I think content is probably the biggest one, behind the scenes and all that sort of stuff. I feel like, how and where do you draw the line with the authenticity side of it? So I feel as a coach, you still need to be a bit of an authority, but the vulnerability is really important for me. I just don't want to overshare and scare anyone off and think they don't want to hire me because I'm a psycho.
Mm-hmm. What type of example would that be?
So similar to yourself in the way that I operate, it's very much about like mending relationships with ourselves and with the scale, and building confidence and doing all that sort of stuff, enjoying the journey. So I feel a big part of that is then sharing my journey, the things, the peaks and valleys. But as you know, sometimes it can be really, really rough, and you go through a longer period of struggling. Like, do you draw a line somewhere, I guess?
To be honest, that is one. And I think when you're going through it, it's probably not easy to jump on and talk about it. But I think when you start to mend the pieces, so say if it was food or you're trying to build like your own confidence back up, talking through a little bit about what you're struggling with, but then maybe more focusing on what you are doing right now to try and be better. So rather than shifting the focus on this was like a really, really bad time, it's not very easy to talk about, but rather like I am doing this and I am trying to focus on X, Y, and Z. Amazing.
Yeah, and I guess probably shifting it more to like what you've moved through rather than what you're going through.
What you're going through. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the things on that too, Tia, is like basically it's about honoring the struggle. So like all of our clients at some point, depending on who you coach, you're going to run into that wall. And so if it comes and they're like, they didn't see that wall coming, it's a big fucking shock. But if they're like, hey, look, Tia's been through this. I've seen her go through it. She's come out the other side. I know that Tia has my back when I go through this. That's that line you want to cross. So it's like, you know, and I often like, what you sort of said is like you don't want to be polarizing, you don't want to push people away, but in a sense you actually do, you know, because like ultimately if you get people that are going to shy away from that, as soon as they hit that, they're going to leave your business anyway because they didn't anticipate it. So in a sense it's about, I think what Ainsley said about just that little bit, but then showing how you're working through it. That's definitely the best way to go about it, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sick. Ainsley, mate. So one thing, there's a couple of I could unpack so much, but let's just start with your Instagram stories, because what you do in there, and I was actually just using you as an example before, is because Instagram stories is where you make your money. Basically, it's like if when you look at Instagram at this point anyway, your wall gives value. It's basically a portfolio, but your Instagram stories, that's where 90% of the attention is. So what would your daily Instagram story flow look like? And what is maybe a couple little details in terms of when you're talking personally on there to your social proof, all of that sort of stuff? What are you doing there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is very, well, with stories, you don't have to pre-plan them. You can just do them in a second that they come up. But I think having a little bit more thought process behind that. So, you know, you always talk about having a little bit more context behind what we're saying. So getting up in the morning, like I said, changing my training to the AM sessions. So I'm training at 6 a.m. Instead, I can post my training videos. So before I even like started my day, people are saying, oh, Ainsley's blah, 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 blah. And then after my session, I might jump up on my story and say, hey, that was an awesome session, or hey, that was a pretty shit session, but now I've got X, Y, and Z and I feel good for the rest of the day. So that's probably a big hack, is start early. So then it keeps the momentum rolling through the start of your day. You know, like if you've gone the whole day without posting, you're probably going to not post at 10 p.m. So start early and then you kind of keep rolling through. Then you post about your food. And then obviously you've got your big social proof. That seems to be like a massive thing that I never did before prior to Mamba. So your main check-in days I will have as Monday and Friday, and they have seemed to be really awesome. Lots of wins, lots of people, you know, talking about how my coaching has helped them, what they're going through, results, testimonials, pump, you know, 3 to 5 of them. And they go really, really well, I find, through stories.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the way you do it is like just such a really good blend. And like, guys, I'd recommend going and checking out Ainsley's Instagram story from the last day, because if you were just, and one thing we sort of teach inside of Mamba is like model world class, you know, is like pick someone who's doing something very, very well and just write down 2 to 3 points from each of her stories and be like, what is she doing? You know, because it's working very, very well for her. And if you guys just replicate that, you know, you'll be able to action that into your own business, which is pretty cool. So off the back of that too, you have recently ran a launch campaign. So you got about 14 new clients in the space of about 7 days. Do you want to talk to us about what you had to plan, what the whole point of this was, and maybe what you sold these people into, so that you know, we can understand the process of that?
So I think launches, yeah, literally. It was 15 clients, Jesse, within a week. It was freaking crazy. Anyways, but yeah, I think launches are not easy. And just knowing that actually, if you want to do a launch, you can't just put up, here's my glute guide and people are going to buy it. So actually understanding the process like a month in advance to give yourself as much time as you can to then plan. And then when it sort of comes back to content, so really, really refining, all right, this is my plan. It's for the New Year's. It's going to be a game changer, but I need to get people to understand, like me, like my product, and feel like they need it going into the new year. So that was probably the biggest thing. And aside from that, just lots of engagement, just doing what I can, but making sure I'm doing it and showing up every single day consistently before the launch. So I was confident within myself that I could sell it.
Yeah, massive. And then, so obviously, like you prepped the launch in terms of like sharing your social proof, all of that sort of thing. Over the space of your launch, what were you sort of posting that you did during that?
Lots of good ones. So with my current like clients that I work with, sometimes it's very hard, and I don't know if it's very hard to get a golden before and after photo, right? Like you could have 50 clients and it's just very, very hard. So I was like, obviously through Dylan, I was like, how can I get social proof that isn't just before and after photos? So something like you guys could do, which is really fun. If you're close to any of your clients, physically, go into the gym, ask if they can come in for a quick gym interview. And that was golden, right? So I was doing like mic'd up sessions with some of my clients, not sessions, sorry, where I'd be like, what's your favorite training program? What's your favorite meal plan? How are you finding online coaching? Or, what was a struggle that you had prior to us working together? And just those little like fun conversations worked really well. So I got a bunch of them and I was making sure I was posting them, every couple of days, most weeks. So it was a different style of visual for people to gauge, because not everyone's going to read the testimonials, but if they see a quick glance of, oh, you know what, I was working with Ainsley and she was helping with confidence. Those little things are like planting the seeds.
Yeah, and that's like that juicy sort of benefit, eh? Those benefits of like, it's beyond the fitness side of thing of like, what are they actually getting from achieving what they wanted to achieve,
And it actually showed like, oh, she actually has clients, or she actually does work with people, right?
Yeah, I think to like obviously you've been able to blend sort of the in-person stuff that you still do a little bit of, and like getting people in the gym and stuff. How are you able to do that? Like now you still coach a few people in person, or are you just all online? What are you doing now?
Yeah. Also, Danielle, I have a mic from Amazon, so I can send you the link if you like. Too. Yeah. So recently, and my goal kind of going into the new year is building a little bit more community, is getting people together. So I'm finding that focus will be good. So for example, doing a workshop, and even if you get 3 people that come to the workshop, you have 3 opportunities to share videos of what you guys got up to, quick testimonials. There's so much you can do with a 1-minute interview with a client. So breaking up into little snippets. So that's been a really good way. I do live close to actually a lot of people who coach, like they go to the same gym that I go to. So obviously that's a golden opportunity. They're probably the top 2.
Yeah, so and what are you with the community stuff you want to do in the new year? How are you going to build this boss community?
Yeah. It's whatever I've done is again kind of doing it so they know in advance, but more focusing on the benefits and also putting it on me. So sharing my journey, for example, like going to the sunny coast. I'm wanting to do these workshops and I'm setting them up in advance. But I said, you know what, I'm a very might not seem it through social media, whatever, but I like to be by myself. Same with you, right? I wouldn't think you're an introvert, but you are too. So, get outside your comfort zone. This is what I felt. I didn't know anyone that I went to, but this is what I came out with. And this was a really opportunity for growth. So really showing the benefits through my perspective of that, leading to, hey guys, I have this opportunity of a workshop. There are a lot of other girls that are going through X, Y, and Z. If you're feeling that you want some help and you want to have some friends in the community, this is an awesome opportunity. So I think really digging on that is my biggest focus for workshops next year.
Yeah, that's very, very, very smart. It's ultimately the same thing you've done with this launch, isn't it? Like plant those little seeds, like, hey, I went to an event, I was scared, but came out of it the other side a completely changed person, that sort of stuff. And by the time you actually launch this event, people were like, oh, fuck, I've been thinking about this for a long time. And it's like, I know, because I've been posting about it for a long time. Yeah. And that right there is like, that's very good marketing, you know, and it's what we sort of call values-based marketing. And it's just sharing from the peer perspective. Like, you're not doing anything to sort of con people in or, you know, make them do something they don't want to do. You're just like, hey, this is what I did. I think you might like it as well. I think it's fucking awesome. Beautiful. So, mate, 12 months from now, where do you sort of want to see your community, and what would be something cool you'd like to tick off with your online business?
I have sort of found that I think through having a little bit more time flexibility, that I very much love the mindset type of things. And I think mindset, self-development, learning goes through in my content as well, because I'm always sort of sharing, oh, this book that I'm reading or this podcast that I listened to and how I helped, and I'm sharing that with my clients, and it's almost like planting seeds like that. So I feel 12 months from now, I'd love to get into that space a little bit more, and not being like a mindset coach, but more like some style of community events that does have seminars that have an integration of mindset training from a complete view. Again, because it's based off my story. You know, I was never here, like I was never into self-development. I didn't care about this, but through fitness and health, it becomes a whole thing. So probably that style of integration, definitely differentiating what I sort of want to do, whether I'm just by myself or whether I want to get someone else with me. But lots of traveling, that's probably a really, really big thing from 12 months from now. And just being
Amazing. And being
happy.
Yeah.
Being happy, going with the journey and going with the days, you know,
Just
which is what to do.
Riding the highs and the lows and just being fulfilled along the way. Yeah, no, beautiful, mate. So probably my last question too, and I think I've asked you this before when I interviewed you last time, so I don't know if it's going to change, but when we were at the funeral of your career, Jesse's sitting there with a hammer and a little chisel chiseling out on your gravestone. What do you think he's put on the gravestone of your career? Once it's all said and done, what do people say about what you've done in the world and your career?
The biggest thing I would probably say authenticity in herself, resilient, and also someone that they want to aspire to be. That's probably my biggest thing, is if someone can see what I've done, or if someone can see what I'm doing and I'm helped one person want to change their life or want to do something different, then my job's done.
Absolutely, mate. That's fucking incredible. Mate, thank you very, very much. What you've done is absolutely incredible, and like the growth in your business is obviously outstanding. But it's just purely the way you've done it, and I really do love the way that like what you do can't be replicated, because it's just you. It's literally just you. Like there's obviously principles and tactics and strategies, but you just being you, that's exactly why your business is where it's at today. So I'm going to open it up, guys, to some questions. Just raise your hands for that. But yeah, Ainsley, you're a fucking legend. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dill, did you raise your hand, bro? Or is that you just moving your arm?
I just moved my arm and scratched my nose at the wrong time.
All good. Kat.
Yeah. So I just have a question just sort of around maybe what you've seen as your biggest buy-in from clients. So is it particularly around sort of stories, content? Maybe if it is around content, is it something specific around maybe nutrition, something that they resonate with, or is it body dysmorphia or your own personal, you know, your past experience?
Yeah, I have found, especially in the DMs, so probably what I have been through really, really works. And also sharing from like a client perspective. So, you know, you might have people that aren't really sold it, or they're like, oh, I like this content of your client's nutrition that you shared. It's like, okay, what did you like about it? And like, oh, my client was actually dealing with this. Is this similar to you? And sharing it from a client perspective and how I've helped them actually help them be like, oh, that's actually really cool. Or that's what I really, really need from content. So being able to share like your client journeys and then share it in the DMs helps with that buy-in process.
Thank you.
Jesse.
The Loom check-ins. Can you break that down for me?
Yep. I like them. I find I get a good response with them. I think it does depend on the person, but yeah, it's the same thing. We run the same app, right? You with Kahunas, yeah. So
yeah,
probably try and keep it to like a 5-minute video. Sometimes you'll go a little bit longer, but I think just really sort of focusing and highlighting their wins, and obviously like giving a lot of praise to what they did do well, and then giving them a good focus of, oh, hey, this is what I want you to focus on through the looms. I think it helps, right? Because people are obviously watching your videos and just knowing like, oh, hey, did you check the loom? These are what I sort of want you to work through. Make sure you jot them some notes and sort of set some goals alongside sending them their loom check-in.
Okay, that's awesome, because I spend maybe a minute with a voice message for each one, and I feel like maybe that's not enough. So what are you going through with them? Are you like, because I've made my check-in form, but like what kind of questions are you asking? Are you going through all day, like if they've done the daily checklist and shit like that, or like what are you doing with all of it?
I actually don't go through the daily check-in. So my questions are sort of like, how's their overall week? How's their adherence, wins, struggles, any notes that they found throughout the week, how they're finding their training program. Usually through that, I'll find a good thing. Obviously, sometimes it's like, sometimes it's really, really good and they'll have not much to say. So I'm like, oh, cool, this is an awesome check-in, honestly. And it might go for 2 minutes. But sometimes you really find one where you're like, okay, this is their focus point. This is their struggle. These are the top 3 goals that I want you to focus on. And maybe you won't on all those things, but I can send you my questions for my check-in if you like.
That'd be unreal. That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Easy.
Tia, yep.
I'd love to actually know, Ainsley, as well on the Loom check-ins. I do it as well. When you have a client who's had a really good week and you don't have a whole lot to discuss, how do you, like, my thing is I kind of just keep waffling because I want them to feel that they've got the value, they've got the service, they've got the attention for the week. Do you have a strategy around, like, if you haven't got much to say, where do you cap it? Or
yeah, I do know that feeling, because you're like, oh, yeah, they've literally just done everything. I reckon just cut it as short. Like, just honestly, just as soon as you jump on, you're like, oh my God, like this is such a freaking awesome check-in. You know what? Like, I'm really proud of you for X, Y, and Z. Honestly, we've just got to replicate this week. Super focused. If you keep doing this for another like 6 to 8 weeks, look, we'll be here. But cut it short, I reckon, and then just really praise them, because that's all they're going to remember. They're not going to sort of, if we sort of keep waffling on for 5 to 10 minutes, they're like, oh, I didn't get anything about it. But like, oh no, Tia's like super, super happy with how I'm going. I'm just going to do the exact same thing this week and then go from there.
yeah, awesome. Thank you.
One thing there too, Tia, is like, understand that when you go online, you're essentially now trading, instead of trading time for money, it's value for money. So, you know, even if it's a 1-minute check-in, you might not even do a check-in, but they're still getting what they're paying for. And quite often we're like, oh, I didn't give them enough of my time. And it sort of feels like I'm not giving enough value, but that's because you've worked for time your whole life, you know? So it's like, just understanding that, like exactly what Ainsley said is like, something she said there was like, hey, look, you just praise it, but you also paint, hey, look, if you keep doing this, this is the result you're going to get down the track. So it's like reinforcing that journey, reinforcing like the compliance in a good way, but it doesn't have to be time-based.
Love that. Thank you.
Yeah, sick. Cool. Team, any more questions? Last one. Danielle. Nah, cool. I always look at when people lean in. It looks like you're going to unmute it. Sweet, guys. No, Ainsley, mate. Yeah, Jesse could ask a million questions, but that's cool. Now, appreciate your time, Ainsley. Thank you very, very much. Super excited to continue to see what you're building out. It's been incredible to watch. As I said, I'm a bit jealous of all your traveling and stuff, which is pretty cool. But you truly deserve it, mate. Like it's quite funny, like you work very, very hard, you know, and you're working on the details, you're working on the little things, and it's not happening by accident. It's not like, hey, look, I'm an online coach now, I'm just gonna, you know, go and post a few videos and then I'll be rich and fly to Bali every week. You know, it doesn't really happen like that. So
No. And I think just to really staying true with, you know what though, if someone else is out there and they're doing what the fuck I want to do, then I can make it happen, right? And that's probably the biggest thing that I keep going to, even with shit days, shit weeks. Like, you're not alone. You just got to go right the way.
yeah, amazing work, mate. I love it. Guys, I'm just gonna take a 2-minute break before we kick into the next section. I did drop the document there for our next part of our call, but yeah, once again, Ainsley, fucking awesome work, and I'll be back in about 2 minutes, guys, and